XRP just hit an all-time high. If you own it or you're considering buying it, you need to hear this. I'm going to go over, and I'm trying to keep these quicker and to the point, 3 key areas. First, we're going to talk about the tech. Secondly, we're going to talk about the recent news and things that will help move the price. And third, we're talking about pricing and my own personal warning. I'm going to call this my XRP caution video. Now, I have owned XRP in the past. I don't currently own it. I owned it, I sold it, I made around a 5 to 6x. I was happy with it. I want everyone who watches my channel to have the most information they can possibly get about crypto that they want to invest in or have invested in. You make the best decisions when you have the most information. So I'm just going to try to keep this factual, and I'll give you my opinion at the end. If you take a look at my channel, you go to my homepage, you can click playlists here or just scroll down. I have one called XRP Boom or Bust. If you click here, it will list all of them. I've done 23 videos over the last year. I think the last one was 10 or 11 months ago. So I've done many videos on XRP, all sorts of things. I will point you, if you're not that familiar with exactly how it works and you're interested, this first video here called XRP and Ripple Explained, it explains how they're different and how the technology works and goes into great depth. So first, we're going to talk about the tech and how the various things differ. Ripple, the company, was created, I think, about 12 or more years ago. I've got videos that go into all the background. Now, XRP is a cryptocurrency. Ripple, the company, and XRP are different. Again, these are just facts. Ripple, the company, is a private company. You can't buy shares on the New York Stock Exchange, etc. However, it does have shares and it does have shareholders. And if it has shareholders, then Ripple, the individuals running it, have a fiduciary duty to maximize the value of Ripple to their shareholders. Just know that. XRP is a cryptocurrency. You can buy XRP. So can I. We can buy it and sell it. If we purchase XRP, the crypto, we are not getting a share or an interest in the Ripple company. So know that they're different. So as we go through some of the stories and you do your own research, all I ask is that you put a pair of glasses on and those glasses say to you and point out when you're reading something, hold on, am I looking at something that benefits Ripple or am I looking at something that benefits XRP? Because oftentimes you'll see stories and you have to say to yourself, that sounds awesome. Is that helpful to XRP or is it helpful to Ripple? Okay, so you know that those two things are different. Let's talk about the technology. You're going to hear RippleNet because when Ripple first started, they basically said they're going to do 2 things. 1, cross-border payments, institutional banks, etc., large. 2, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. I would say, roughly speaking, 90% of their focus was on cross-border, maybe 10 on CBDC. Anyway, for the most of the time, it's been about the technology and cross-border payments, and they would say, well, this is going to replace SWIFT. We'll talk about that news in a moment. So RippleNet and ODL are the 2 technologies that the company Ripple uses and created. RippleNet is essentially sending money cross-border. So you've got a bank, it's got a currency, it turns it into a crypto, it sends it, and then when it gets to the other side, it's turned back into the other currency, and it does the currency exchanges using what they call ODL, their on-demand liquidity. So those 2 things work hand in hand. Did you notice, if you were wearing your glasses, did I say that RippleNet only uses XRP to do bank transfers cross-border? No, I did not. Because it can use anything. And they have. They have a new crypto called RLUSD, a stablecoin, and they have said that they've used that in some cases to transfer money. Okay, just want to make sure you understand the technology of RippleNet and the ODL, cross-border payments, owned by Ripple, can use XRP, doesn't have to. Now, why is that significant? It's significant because if you look back, and the reason most people were buying XRP is because they would say, well, it's cross-border payments. It's going to revolutionize the financial world. It's going to take all of Swift's business, which is like trillions of dollars sent around every year. It's an unbelievable amount of money. And therefore, the price of XRP will go up in value. There's a limited number of XRP. It's only 100 billion. It's a finite number. I think about 60 billion are actually in circulation. The others are held in what's called an escrow. And we'll talk about that later. Of those 60 billion, the idea was, okay, well, if all these banks are sending money around and they need to send a lot of money, then the price of XRP mathematically has to climb so that they can buy enough of it to send and then switch it back over. That was the idea. But they haven't replaced SWIFT. And they don't have to use XRP. Okay, so that's the difference between Ripple and XRP. You understand there's a difference. You know who has the technology. You know that XRP doesn't necessarily have to be used. And you know that over that 12-year period of time, they thought they're going to replace SWIFT. They were unable to. It hasn't happened. Okay, the second thing is, what is this? XRPL. You'll hear about XRP Ledger and XRP. XRP is the cryptocurrency. XRP Ledger is the blockchain that facilitates and records the transactions. So that's how those two things differ. And XRP Ledger is a separate entity from Ripple itself. Great. That was it. That is a high-level discussion of the differences of those three things being Ripple, XRP, and the XRP Ledger, and then the technology that Ripple has and what they use. Let's talk about news, because you'll hear people say all these banks are using it and all this is happening. Let's see what we can really find. I was doing this video, and in my research, looking at many different articles to come up with recent news, I came across this article, which is actually excellent, on CCN. Now, their title is XRP didn't replace SWIFT, but here's what it did instead. So a lot of people are kind of brushing aside the whole, their main purpose was to do this, cross-border payments, take over SWIFT. They didn't really do it. And they're just like, oh, that's no big deal. What are they doing now? Well, that is a big deal. Okay, so here are, they say case studies, but these are, I think, some of the larger news stories in terms of countries and banks using Ripple. Again, use your glasses, and XRP, RippleNet and ODL are Ripple owned. Okay, Philippines, Union Bank, first fully licensed virtual asset bank in the country, has integrated RippleNet and ODL to support faster cross-border payments. That's great. RippleNet, ODL, use your glasses. Does it say XRP? It doesn't. Are they? Maybe, but they don't have to. That helps Ripple for sure. Does it help XRP? Don't know. Next, China Bank, in partnership with Qatar Bank, enables XRP-backed transactions from Qatar to the Philippines, removing layers of correspondent banking. That's great. That's what it was made for. It says XRP-backed transfers. That would help XRP. India, they talk about ODL with XRP is live. Doesn't talk about XRP. Latin America, Travelex Bank Brazil, the region's first FX-focused bank licensed to operate with ODL, uses XRP. Great. Mexico, Ripple partners with this. They've got one. They talk about the Middle East. But notice, you're not seeing stories or information about the US and about large banks. I'm going to talk about that towards the end. Now, you can go read the whole article, but this is interesting. At the end, did XRP deliver on its promises or just survive? Meaning, they haven't, and it says here, they haven't fully replaced SWIFT. They're not even close. So what are they really doing? And they talk about how they're sort of shifting their focus. So let's get into what I would call my warning portion of the video. I'm trying to keep this quick, as I said. First, as I said, I don't own it currently. I'm also not shorting it. What does that mean? Well, if I own it, of course I want it to go up in price. If I'm shorting it, I want it to go down in price. So you might say, this is a bad video. You're just telling people to get rid of it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just trying to give you some facts so that you can make a good decision. Here's why. The XRP price, as we said, hit an all-time high. But let's look at XRP, the cryptocurrency. It is ranked as number 3. Market cap, fully diluted. People will say, look at market cap. By market cap, it's number 3. Now, if you're not familiar, let me just reiterate. To get the market cap, you take the price, which is 3.5. You take the number of crypto in circulation, which is, I think, about 60 billion. You multiply it, you get 207. You multiply the price by the total amount of cryptocurrency, and you get the fully diluted. I like to compare fully diluted because that is the price of the entire entity, so to speak. $350 billion market cap for XRP. That is substantial. All right, now what is it underneath? 450 billion for Ethereum. So let me just go over something real quick. We go to DeFi Llama. We look up the entire decentralized finance world. How much total value locked in US dollars? 141 billion. What portion of that does Ethereum make up? 84 billion. You can see the fees that they generate, everything they do. You've heard about Ethereum. You hear about all of the different crypto coins built on top of it, all the financial transactions, everything that's happening. It's half or more than half of all of the blockchains total value locked. That's substantial. That is the 800-pound gorilla. Let's look up XRPL, the XRP ledger. It says total locked in DeFi is 93 million. That is nothing compared to Ethereum. Now, of course, it wasn't created just for DeFi. It was created for cross-border payments. So if you look at something like Stellar, and I have a video about XLM versus XLP. I mentioned Stellar because the technology is very similar. Why is the technology very similar? Because both companies were started by the same CTO. The CTO that started the original company, which became Ripple, left, and he started XLM. So both companies had the same CTO. Stellar, for the last 5 years, has put out quarterly reports. Now, we all know that these are cryptocurrencies. They're not subject to regulations such as quarterly reports and informational statements like you would see S1s and whatnot with a public company. So they don't have to put out quarterly reports. If they do, they can put whatever they want in them. There's no regulations. However, this is what I call transparency. For 5 years, they have quarterly reports, and if you click into one, you're going to learn all about it. Exactly how much is being used, how many wallets are there, what's being transferred, what's the value of it, everything. Ripple, this has been the one problem I've had with Ripple is that they don't do that. Now they used to put out quarterly reports. They never said on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis, and if you're going to leave comments like everyone does, that I'm a dummy, I don't know what I'm talking about, banks are using it, show me the sources, please. Because I've asked everyone and no one has sources because the CEO and the president of Ripple, CEO being Brad Garlinghouse and then there's the president, none of them, they've never said directly in a blog, on a video, in an interview, they've had plenty of time to do it over the last 12, 13, whatever many years. They've never said how much banks are actually transferring cross-border using RippleNet. And they've never broken it down for XRP. We have no idea. They could be transparent. We have information about Ethereum. We've got information about Stellar. And all of the big cryptos, you can find all the information you want to find about these top cryptocurrencies, except for XRP. That's my warning. My warning is this. 350 million fully diluted. Do I think XRP is a bad technology? I don't. I think it's a great technology. The only thing I question is why won't they tell us if it's actually being used well or not? Here's a theory. 100 billion XRP, 60 billion in circulation, 40 billion, if you didn't know this, is in an escrow account. It started with 55 billion. What does that mean? That 55 billion is in an escrow. It has escrow rules. Every month, 1 billion can be sold. Up to 1 billion. They don't have to sell it all. Who's they? Ripple. When that XRP is sold, or it can be distributed, the money goes to Ripple. The price is $3.50. When it was 50 cents, if they sold 1 billion that month, they would get $500 million. That's a lot of money. That could pay their operating expenses. That could pay for advertisements in Times Square. That could pay for advertisements in a subway. That could pay for advertisements on a truck. Why do I say that? Because people post all the time that they have advertisements everywhere, meaning that is because they have advertisements, they will go up in value. No, you had to have lived through the dot-com era. I did. I had I had a startup company for online advertising before the dot-com boom and went through it. And I saw how much money was being spent on advertising because a lot of it was being spent with my company to push and discuss their technologies. That did not mean they were profitable. And most of those didn't even live. So I'm wondering, if they're selling it at 50 cents, that's 500 million. It's at 350. If they sell $1 billion worth in 1 month, I laugh because it sounds crazy. They're going to get $3.5 billion. That is insane. In 1 month. Do you think they can pay a lot of employees with that? Yeah. An unbelievable amount. That's a huge budget. Now, if they don't sell the whole 1 billion, which they don't have to do, whatever they don't sell goes back into the escrow and adds another month. So I think it was originally, let's say, 55 billion, $1 billion a month. It lasts for 55 months. But if that first month you don't sell the whole billion, it gets tacked on, and now you got another month, another month, another month. So theoretically, I'm not saying this is the case. This is all right now at the end here. This is just my opinion. Theoretically, they are only surviving on the money from selling XRP out of escrow on the public market to people like you and me. And then Ripple's taking that cash into their company, putting out ads, pushing to use RippleNet, whatever it may be. And there's, in my opinion, we've got a $350 billion market cap, fully diluted, of something that we can't find any information on in terms of what they're actually doing. That's scary to me. That was the warning I wanted to put out to you. I'm not telling you whether you should buy it or not buy it. Why did I buy it? I will honestly say I always say I own a close to 60 crypto, although I've moved some around. But of all of them, there was only one that I purchased purely because of the momentum of the community, and that was XRP. There are more people posting about it and talking about it than any other crypto. Maybe Bitcoin more, possibly Ethereum, but XRP's got one of the biggest, loudest communities. And because of that, and the reason I talk about XRP a lot, I know I'm rambling, but I want to get this across. You need to look at what people post and say, one, is there a source? Is there actually a source to this? Because sometimes people post videos from 5 years ago and they won't tell you that. Is there a source for them saying billions are being sent by banks? Is that true? Did the CEO say that? And is it benefiting Ripple or is it benefiting XRP? Because you're buying, we're talking about XRP. We're not talking about shares of Ripple. Okay, so that's very important to know. So please, just understand, I do like it, the technology, but it scares me to death because I'm old enough to have gone through the dot-com boom. I'm old enough to have watched the Enron debacle. If you're not familiar, look that one up. I'm old enough to have seen things like, I hate to say Bernie Madoff, that's not the same, but if you're selling this one thing in order to keep the other thing going, that doesn't sound right. So who knows? I hope everyone who has XRP sells it and makes a nice profit. My disclaimer, I'm Brian. I'm a big dumb animal. Don't do what I do, informational purposes only. 2, you'll see a link down below, or at least a QR code. In the description, there's a link. If you sign up for iTrust Capital, if you're in the US, you can get crypto in an IRA, tax-free gains. You can get an extra $100 if you use my link. Third thing, you'll see here I have a school community. There's a link in the description below. You can see the link here on the screen. And if you join, we have daily discussions about all sorts of crypto. I also do a daily update there on the market. And most importantly, I have classes and courses to teach you everything about crypto.